Not only can you pre-plan a funeral, but you can pre-plan your sunset cemetery arrangements, which removes the difficulty of planning for a loss at the same time loved ones are experiencing one. Contact Primrose Funeral Service at 405-321-6000 or visit them online at primrosefuneralservice.com.
Are pests invading your home? Call Avenge Pest Control now and get your initial pest control service at half price. Avenge Pest Control is a family-owned and operated company proudly serving the entire OKC metro area, Enid, Ardmore, and the Durant-Texoma area. They take care of all of our pest control needs at the Rev. They offer free termite inspections and comprehensive services. With mice and rat season upon us, don't wait. Protect your home today. Get more info at AvengePestControl.com or call 405-693-2233. Avenge Pest Control. There's only one Red River Bash, and it's with Opossum on Campus Corner, and it's on your way to OU, Texas this Friday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you're driving down for the big game, stop and get fired up and fueled up with Opossum as they'll be set up at the Brody Valero in Marietta, exit 15 off of I-35. It's the Red River Bash with Opossum. OU merchandise, free hot dogs, and fun and games. Get geared up for the OU Texas game at the Red River Bash with Opossum, exit 15 off of I-35 at the Brody Valero in Marietta.
No matter where you live, you care about one thing during bad weather: keeping your family and property safe. Scissortail Roofing and Construction is here to ensure just that. Whether it's damage from strong winds or a hailstorm, we will manage your residential or commercial project from start to finish. Call us today, 405-928-8089. Visit us online at scissortailroofing.com for a free estimate. Call Scissortail today, your trusted local roofing and construction company.
You're listening to the home of Sooner fans, KREF, Norman, Oklahoma, and streaming live on the KREF app.
The Ref Sports Radio Network.
Live from the Buffalo Wild Wings studios, it's time to get locked into the best Sooner recruiting and football news with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
Go ahead, take one. We are so back. We're giving away koozies. We're giving away T-shirts. We're giving away all sorts of freebies all day here at the Omni in Dallas. Sooner fans are starting to roll in by the dozen throughout the day. What a weekend it is. My favorite weekend of the year. Completely free, sir. Feel free to take whatever you would like. By all means, go ahead, grab anything and everything. 405-651-3439 is how you tap in with us today on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. And I will be completely frank, Grayson Singleton. First off, thank you for holding things down back in the Buffalo Wild Wings studios. We always enjoy this particular day of programming from the Omni in Dallas in advance of OU Texas. But I'll be honest, I was not planning on talking a ton of recruiting today. This is probably the one day a year where nobody minds that. And we are going to talk a lot about OU Texas. But about half an hour before we went on air just now, the Sooners got a commitment. And a pretty consequential one. A pretty highly coveted defender from the Sunshine State. That, of course, was a recruitment we had been tracking for a while. The Sooners hosted him for an official visit a couple of weekends ago. He took a subsequent trip to Ohio State, but then decided in the aftermath he was done. He wanted to be a Sooner. He didn't need to see anything further. Four-star linebacker Jacob Curry, 6'1", 210 pounds out of Nice High School in St. Augustine, Florida, is officially locked in with Oklahoma. Look at that. The name of the show ties into our lead right off the bat. Elite radio so far. Grayson, I know we've talked about Curry. I know we've talked about what he's put on tape, the athlete that he is, but especially as you've kind of had the chance to track him through the first few games of his senior year, man, what traits do you think that Jacob Curry brings to this Oklahoma linebacker room that are going to be especially desirable for this program?
Well, first of all, I will say it is eerie back here in the Buffalo Wild Wings studio. The only people in this entire office right now is myself and Hattie, who is running our YouTube stream. So it is it is dark, it is vacant, and it's a little bit creepy. I'm not going to lie to you. Now, as for Jacob Curry, the thing I like most about him is positional versatility. And at 6'2", 210, he's got the body type that can grow into an SEC linebacker, but the way I look at him, he's got a lot of cheetah safety traits in him. With the way he can play downhill and diagnose plays, he's pretty decent in coverage too. So it'll be interesting to see how he's used in a Brent Venables type system, because the players, and this is why I was so high on Kendall Daniels coming over, players that can really elevate themselves in this system and really develop in this system are guys that you have multiple spots where they can land and they can fit, just depending on how they develop into college players. So when I look at the tape, he lines up at inside linebacker, he lines up at safety, he lines up at what we have known as like the nickel position now in modern football. He also lines up sometimes as an outside linebacker too. He lines up all over the place, and he's got pretty good tape at all of those positions. So where he's going to be used is going to matter. Where he develops at given positions is going to matter. But my favorite thing about him is that he's got that versatility to where he's going to make himself available at different spots where you can ultimately find him a home just based on what he gravitates toward the most.
Now, as we have noted here on these airwaves already, Heath Ozida is currently the only scholarship ginger at the University of Oklahoma. That turned out all right. He was a starter by year 2. Now in year 3, he's the full-time guy at left guard for Oklahoma. So when the Sooner staff decides to take a chance on a ginger, I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. And Jacob Curry does have a glorious mane of red hair. Very distinctive appearance. And he brings a lot of athleticism and a ball-hawking type of mentality to that linebacker room. He's a guy that just has a nose for the football, which, I mean, you can see a good linebacker on tape. You can identify a good linebacker on tape. And pretty much the common denominator amongst all good linebackers is they're just going to always be around the ball. And Jacob Curry is always around the ball. Just has a knack for getting there, sees the field well, diagnoses well, gets sideline to sideline well. Somebody that alongside Bo Jandro and Ja'Cory Smith in Oklahoma's linebacker class is going to add a lot of value to the equation. And here's my favorite aspect of all of this, Grayson. Jacob Curry received his very first scholarship offer almost 2 years ago to the day. It was October 16th, 2023, during his sophomore season at Nice High School. He received that offer from none other than the man he's going to play for at the collegiate level, Oklahoma linebackers coach Nate Dreiling. At the time, Dreiling was the defensive coordinator at New Mexico State. So, in a certain sense, even though the communication may not have been continuous all the way through, this is the culmination of an effort that began for Nate Dreiling almost 2 full years ago. He's been sowing and watering this seed for a long, long time, and it finally pays off today with Curry's commitment.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, I hold Nate Dreiling in high regard, too. Because of what he did at his previous stops, especially the situation that he ended up in at Utah State. But here's the thing with linebackers and Oklahoma. They have a chance to do something special with this group, and I alluded to this yesterday, but they've got linebackers up and down that coaching staff, guys with linebacker backgrounds. When you look at Brent Venables and Nate Dreiling and Wes Goodwin and whomever else that they've got in there, there is linebacker after linebacker after linebacker in terms of the development of the coaching staff. So it really, to me, would be a bigger story if they didn't get this dude, because there is no better pull in the country right now, especially when you combine how Oklahoma's linebackers have played so far this year. There's no better pull in the country than Oklahoma, given who's going to be developing them and the play of the dudes that have been put on tape so far.
By the way, for those that aren't aware, I should make you aware. If you're coming down to Dallas, especially if you're staying at the Omni, if you're going to come through in any capacity and tap in with us here, you should know that during the rush, Tyler McComas, Teddy Lehman, they're going to kick things off at 3 o'clock as they typically do with the final 3 hours of live OU sports talk on our airwaves every single day. So 3 to 6, they're going to be on air from right here at the Omni. They're going to be giving away prizes the entire time. Those prizes include ref swag bags, gift cards to such establishments as the Hal Smith Restaurant Group, Mitchell's Jewelry, the local restaurant, the Mont in Norman, as well as some memorabilia, a signed football from the team here in 2025, the Oklahoma football team, as well as a signed football from Brian Bosworth. So, prizes aplenty are going to be doled out throughout the day. That's why you want to come show up at the Omni here today in Dallas, Texas. Big D. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Oklahoma now has 21 verbal commits in the 2026 class with the addition of Jacob Curry, and I do not know exactly how high they're going to rise. That hasn't been recalibrated, but they were sitting at number 20 nationally. They will rise in the team rankings with the addition of Jacob Curry, I would think by 3 or 4 spots. So they should continue to sit somewhere in that 15 to 18 range once the rankings are all recalibrated with Curry's addition. Now, on the text line, a 918 listener says, I thought Trey Wisner re-injured his hamstring versus Florida. Not listed on the injury report. Don't teams have to disclose everything? No, they don't. They only have to disclose injuries if the injuries are legitimately in danger of impacting a student-athlete's availability for the game. So, for instance, I think there's a very good chance you don't see John Mateer listed on the next availability report that the Sooners release, because at this point it's pretty clear and obvious he's going to play. He's going to start for Oklahoma. And so once it becomes clear, if at any point it becomes clear that XYZ guy is playing in the football game, without question, beyond a shadow of a doubt, he will disappear from the availability report. So by Wednesday, when the initial availability report came out, there was already a confidence from the Texas side that Trey Wisner is 100% going to be available. At that point, he does not have to be listed on the availability report. Now, they did decide to list a couple of other guys in Parker Livingston and Malik Muhammad that were dealing with injuries that had thrown their status into question. But as we sit here today on Friday, 24 hours away, just over 24 hours away from kickoff, Livingston and Muhammad are both on track to play for Texas. So here's what I like, Grayson, as we kind of start to dig into this football game. What I like is that both teams are going to be pretty close to full health. Oklahoma has certain issues that they have to get past injury-wise, namely the depth at offensive tackle. Texas has injuries with which they have to cope. But when you're looking at the 22 guys that are going to hit the field for both teams tomorrow, what you're getting is a virtual facsimile of what these two teams' ideal lineups look like. And so it's good on good. It's best on best. May the best team win tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's how you like it. And I do think both teams come in, even though the narrative around both of them is very different, I think they both come in pretty similar in a lot of ways. Running games for each have been an issue. I think whoever runs the ball better is going to have the upper hand. Run block the offensive lines. The offensive lines have been an issue for both. I think those two are X factors. Both teams' defenses have been very good. I think what happened to Texas against Florida is an aberration. I think they're going to come to play. So there's a lot of parallels between these two teams, and the desperation factor, which has had no shortage of run everywhere in the country, I think is also pretty equal, because Texas needs this one to keep their playoff hopes alive, and boy, would that be a resume enhancer if they were going to beat the number 2 team in the country at a neutral site. But also, Brent Venables, he's got to get this game. He's got to get this one. He can't go to 1-3 against the Longhorns, especially with the injury cloud not being a factor this year. So I think there's a lot of, similar narratives with these teams going in. And I'm glad we're going to get to break down a football game, God willing, that is not clouded by injuries.
Here's a fun little trivia question, and this was brought to my attention by a burner account that DM'd me randomly on Twitter. It was a really good point and something I hadn't thought about. Can you name, Grayson, the member of this OU staff that has most recently coached a game against Texas?
The member – wait, say that one more time just to make sure I got this.
Can you name the member of the OU staff that has most recently coached a game against Texas?
Is it not Brent Venables?
It's not Brent Venables. It's Wes Goodwin, who was the defensive coordinator for Clemson.
Yes.
When those two teams met in the college football playoff last year.
Yep, there you go.
And so, man, this is kind of the reason, right, why you bring a guy like Wes Goodwin in a kind of on-field, kind of off-field role. Like, he's not nominally one of the 11 on-field staffers, at least in their traditional sense. But when Oklahoma brought Wes Goodwin in as a guy that had worked under Brent Venables for years and years and years and then inherited his old post as the defensive coordinator at Clemson, they're kind of thinking, okay, this guy's been through the ringer. He knows the system, but he's also gone and done his own thing for a period of time. He was the sole defensive coordinator at Clemson for 3 years post-Venables. And so a guy like that, man, a guy like that is incredibly valuable on a weekend like this because when you're going up against an offensive maestro like Steve Sarkisian, it's going to be all hands on deck for y'all as a defensive staff to make sure that you bring the best possible game plan to the table. And a guy like Wes Goodwin is somebody that you're going to be able to lean on a little bit more than usual because, again, he's also seen this Sarkisian offense more recently and probably a truer representation of this Sarkisian offense than anybody on the staff. Because, I mean, let's be honest, at a certain point last October, Texas was just coasting. I mean, it was clear by the midpoint of the second quarter that Oklahoma was not going to score very many points in the football game. And so you could just kind of coast if you were the Longhorns. And they did, and it was a pretty forgettable, pretty rudimentary last couple quarters of that football game. But it does make you wonder, like, if Oklahoma goes and wins this football game tomorrow, is Wes Goodwin one of those guys that's getting a little shout-out from Brent Venables in the post-game presser?
It's certainly possible. Hey, before we get out of here for the first segment, there was a question on the YouTube chat concerning Jacob Curry. Jimmy asked, is there a possibility that he could play Cheetah at Oklahoma?
There is certainly that possibility. I mean, he's athletic enough. You might say sneaky athletic. But he's athletic enough to play Cheetah, no question about it. It's really just it's a question of how does that room stack up? Because I would say any given year, there are always 2 or 3 linebackers that Brent Venables is actively cross-training at that Cheetah spot. I mean, right now, Kendall Daniels can go play Cheetah. Samuel Masigo can go play Cheetah. I mean, Kendall Dolby is a Cheetah in its purest form. But if we're talking like guys from the linebacker archetype, if you will, it's Kendall Daniels, it's Samuel Masigo, and then Taylor Heim as well. So it's just a matter of what does that room actually look like when Jacob Curry shows up, and is he one of those guys that you want to cross-train at that Cheetah spot? Because realistically, there are more guys than just those 3 that I referenced that could do it, but you don't want to have everybody cross-training at Cheetah. You want some guys to be able to focus on what they're really, really good at. And there are some guys like a James Nesta, for example, and maybe he hasn't really broken through yet, but that's a guy that the Sooner staff is quite confident is going to be really, really good at inside linebacker. U.S. Army Sooner on the text line says, if you are going to talk recruiting during this hour, I'm tuning out. We've had 4.5 days of the OU-Texas game, and it's doubtful that anything you two are going to add will be any more insightful than anything else that's been said since we got past Kent State. I really wish you'd stick to recruiting in this hour like the title of your show. Yeah, here's the thing, U.S. Army Sooner. First and foremost, we talk recruiting year-round. There are only so many recruiting storylines that are pertinent, and if you disagree, that is okay. I would argue that unless you have a commitment that is fresh, very fresh at that, as Jacob Curry's was, there probably aren't that many recruiting storylines on Friday of OU Texas week that take precedence over OU Texas the game itself. So we discussed Jacob Curry's commitment to lead off the show. We're going to interact with all of you as we do every single day on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. We'll certainly field whatever recruiting forward questions that you have. But I reserve the right one day a year, U.S. Army Sooner, to lean more on game discussion and analysis and prognostication than I do on recruiting talk. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Please feel free to weigh in. Feel free to fire questions at us. We're going to have a fun show over the course of the next 40 minutes or so. And then we'll turn it over to Teddy and Tyler, who will have as much fun, if not more, over the 3 hours to come as OU fans continue to stream into the Omni here in Dallas. Hardly 24 hours away from kickoff between the Sooners and the Longhorns. Much more ahead here on The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Keep it right here.
Beat Texas Week on the Ref is brought to you by Boyd Street Ventures. Visit BoydStreetVentures.com to see how Boyd Street Ventures is bringing OU innovation to the world. Boyd Street Ventures, under the radar, above the crowd.
Are you in need of purchasing your own health insurance? Are you turning 65 and confused about Medicare? Are you an employer looking at offering benefits to your staff? Call the agents at Allison Insurance. They'll sort through the confusion. They're not captive to just one company, and they'll get the best option for you. Don't get frustrated. Call Allison Insurance at 800-580-5587 or 745-2968. Allison Insurance. They are the experts.
Purple Wave Auction remains the trusted leader in online equipment auctions. What makes the difference is you. You are part of our growing global community that continues to trust Purple Wave with the equipment that builds and feeds America. This trust placed in us by our community, from construction to ag producers and fleet drivers, brings great equipment opportunities to their next owners. Join the Purple Wave community today. purplewave.com.
Victory Family Church. It's more than just a church, it's truly a family. And as it continues to grow, you can now celebrate with 6 opportunities every Sunday morning, starting as early as 8:30 a.m., with our final service starting at 1. Learn more about service times and everything going on with Pastor Adam and the church at victoryfamily.church. That's victoryfamily.church. Check out our campuses in Newcastle, Chickasha, and Shawnee. Victory Family Church, online at victoryfamily.church.
Sidelined by injury, illness, surgery? Valor Physical Therapy and H2 Health Company can help. A 10-time Community Choice Award winner, let our skilled therapists create a rehabilitation program individualized just for you. Whether it's sports or the activities of life, let Valor get you back in the game. Start now at valorpt.com or call 405-609-3637. No referral needed. Mention the Ref and get a free t-shirt at your first appointment.
Did the recent storms damage your home and roof? Call All-American Roofing today. All-American Roofing has been repairing and replacing roofs for over 40 years and is a second-generation locally owned roofing company. They are also a Google guaranteed contractor and offer free inspections. Our roofers are GAF Master Elite contractors with a BBB A+ rating. Call All-American Roofing today at 405-787-0400. All-American Roofing, the best roofing company in Oklahoma. 405-787-0400. Hey, sports fans, you cheer on your kids on the field, now give them a chance to shine on stage. At the studio of the Sooner Theater, our school year performing art classes are open for ages 3 to adult. From musical theater to acting, jazz, tap, ballet, and hip-hop, and full-scale productions where your star can perform in the spotlight. Don't sit on the sidelines. Enroll now. Visit SoonerTheater.org or call 405-321-9600. The Sooner Theater, where every season is game day for the arts.
It's spooky season here at Riverwind Casino.
And the monster jackpots are taking over.
Experience all thrills and chills on brand new electronic games.
Celebrate in style as a VIP in a private suite in our Showplace Theater.
Game like an MVP when you play with your wild card.
Drop in every Friday in October to win your share of our $100,000 Creepin' for Cash giveaway.
So keep the good times rolling at your favorite haunt.
And we'll see you at Riverwind Casino.
This winter, hit the court and join the action. The Youth Winter Basketball League is here, open to athletes of all skill levels. Build your game, make new friends, and compete in a fun, supportive environment. With flexible registration options and volunteer coaches focused on teamwork, there's a spot for everyone, whether you're playing for fun or aiming to compete. Don't miss out on early bird pricing. Scholarships are available for Norman residents based on need. Sign up today and make this season unforgettable. Visit YFACsport.com.
It is the Ref, the home of Sooner fans, back with you here on Locked In. Parker Thune from the Omni in Dallas. Grayson Singleton took off. He's off to call a game in Tulsa. But you got me, I got y'all. Y'all are quite lively, as usual, on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. So, hey, let's go right there as we continue to talk OU Texas in advance of this football game. I love that y'all have a sense of humor about Jacob Curry. Is he a gym rat, coach on the field, lunch pail guy, first on the field, last off? Yes, exactly. That's exactly the type of player that Jacob Curry is. On the topic of another linebacker, there was a listener that asked, is Case Alexander Rufus Alexander's son? Wrong, former Sooner, Bobby, because Case Alexander, like Jacob Curry, is of the Caucasian persuasion. He is the son of former Oklahoma tight end Steven Alexander, who played 10 years in the NFL. So I was actually out in Washington, Oklahoma, Washington, if you prefer, to watch Case Alexander last night. Good ball player, that one. He's the top-rated defender in the class of 2027 in the state of Oklahoma. So the Sooners right now have the two top players overall in the 2027 cycle within state lines pledged in Cooper Hackett and Caden Penny. Thus, Case Alexander is the highest-ranked in-state prospect that is not committed to Oklahoma in the 2027 cycle. Here joining us now, live on the program, to make sure I don't have to filibuster for the next 40 minutes, is Travis Davidson, Grill Boy himself, who rolled in, about an hour and a half ago? What are you thinking so far?
Yeah, something like that. I'll tell you what, getting here a little bit earlier this year was the move. I actually got a great parking spot in the parking garage. Not much of a line here at the Omni to check in, and got to hop on with you. So,
I'm a little bit surprised that the surge hasn't really come yet.
Well, last year we got here at like 3:30, and boy, oh boy, did it come. I mean, the line was wrapped, the line of cars was wrapped all the way around, all that. I mean, we're top 5, top 6 team in the country. You know, they should be rolling in droves.
I know. Usually this hour, the 2 to 3 o'clock window, is when the folks start to roll in en masse. So we'll see if it happens. But obviously the fresh news, would love your thoughts on it. Jacob Curry committed to Oklahoma, the 4-star linebacker out of St. Augustine, Florida, locked in with the Sooners just a little less than an hour ago. Now, this was a guy that was on everybody's radar, obviously had been for a while. Sooners offered in late July, got him on campus for an official visit a couple weeks back. And Nate Dreiling closes the loop on a recruitment he'd been working for a long, long time. He was the very first college coach to offer Curry all the way back in October of 2023 when he was at New Mexico State. So the Sooners, man, just when it seemed in August or so, like they might be out of steam, like that might be it in the 2026 class, okay, pack it in, get ready for portal season. Man, they've made a late surge here, adding Xavier Okafuleze, adding Braden Allen, adding Jacob Curry, and, as we all kind of understand at this point, well on track to add Daniel McMorris by the end of the month.
Yeah, and perhaps a wide receiver as well. So continuing to add to the class. Obviously not going to be the high-rated class that, you know, Oklahoma is used to. Not going to be a top 5, 10 class unless there's some drastic reshuffling. 2027 obviously is going to be one of those top classes. But, yeah, I mean, winning sure helps, doesn't it, Parker? When you're going against programs like Florida State and Ohio State for the talents of one Jacob Curry, you got to come to the table with a little bit of security, and it really feels like this staff is recruiting from a place of confidence and a place of security.
with which in the summer they just simply didn't have, right? I mean, you were going into year 4 of Brent Venables after 2 6-win seasons, kind of fell on your face last year. Defense was good, but Brent Venables comes in on the hot seat. Now all of a sudden you bring a top 10 ranking into October, you bring it into the Red River Shootout, and you're favored in the game. So you start doing those type of things, and the negative recruiting tends to calm down a little bit. There's less holes to punch in the recruiting pitch from the Sooners. So I think that paid off with Curry.
Now this game here tomorrow, Travis, which we're going to talk a lot about all throughout the day, no question about it, all the way leading up until kickoff and for days afterward. But it's going to have a recruiting impact. Maybe not the same type of recruiting impact that we're used to, because obviously we're accustomed to OU and Texas recruiting a lot of the same guys and from the same pool of talent, if you will. That's not really the case right now. There's a little bit of overlap in the 2027 class, not a ton. Guys like Jerry Outhouse, Demarion Mays, etc. Crew Jones out of Utah, a guy that Oklahoma's in really, really good shape with. Guys that are strongly considering both OU and Texas. But when you look at the 2026 class, there were only two prospects that OV'd to both OU and Texas this summer. OU got both of them. It was Jake Krell and Bo Jandro, but that's really it. Not a ton of crossover right now between the Sooners and the Longhorns in terms of the talent pool from which they're pulling on the recruiting trail. However, this is one of the most iconic rivalries in college football. This is a game that could and very well should validate Oklahoma as a legit college football playoff contender if those conversations aren't already happening and there aren't people that will entertain those conversations with regard to the Sooners. But if Oklahoma goes and wins this game tomorrow, you will see a ripple effect. Maybe not with the pool of guys that you're used to seeing it ripple with, i.e., guys that were strongly considering Texas, and now you can go to those guys and say, hey, we're better than these suckers. But in general, the overall talent pool from which you're pulling, the guys that you're actively pursuing, those guys are going to put stock into a win like this one if the Sooners get it done tomorrow.
Yeah, and obviously Texas is your chief recruiting rival. There may not be a lot of overlap right now, but best believe there will be in 2027, 2028, and beyond. I mean, they recruit the same state extremely heavily, and even when you look at the freshman class of students at OU right now, so many of them are from the Dallas Metroplex, right? Like, it's just you're going to recruit a ton of Texas. So I liken this game to, contaminating the water north, right, when you're at the river, right? Well, if you contaminate the water there, you may not see the effects downstream for a long time. But after a while, they're going to be able to trace that back to the source. And that's what Oklahoma is trying to do to the Texas Longhorn water. You're trying to plant those seeds of doubt in Steve Sarkisian moving forward. You're trying to push them to 3-3. You're trying to show all quarterback recruits, hey, they've had 2 perfectly rated quarterbacks. What's going on with Sark's development? How come they can't play their best in big games? What are their red zone issues? What's up with this offensive line? Is Kyle Flood having issues to develop? Are they just star chasing because they can't develop? You can start using all these things and contaminating the Texas Longhorn water for the classes in 2027, 2028, and beyond. So, yes, this game for sure matters immensely, but not just in the short term, but the long-term effects it could have.
I'm glad we're talking a lot about Taylor Wine this week because, as we've discussed the last couple of days, Taylor Wine is quite literally a guy that never winds up at Oklahoma if the Sooners don't lose 49-0 in 2022, which sucked, obviously. No two ways about it. That was a miserable experience. But what did that lead to? Well, that led to Colton Vasek, at the time a 4-star defensive end commit to Oklahoma, flipping to Texas. And it was only because Vasek flipped to Texas that Oklahoma ever had any reason to go and identify a new targeted defensive end in the 2023 class and recruit him. That guy turned out to be Taylor Wine. And Taylor Wine has outproduced Colton Vasek, even though it took him 2 full seasons to see the field at Oklahoma with any regularity. Coming into this game, Vasek has 1 solo tackle on the year for the Longhorns. Wine leads Oklahoma in both sacks and tackles for loss, 3.5, 5.5. So, to me, this game also provides a really unique opportunity, even more so than most years, for the Oklahoma staff to prove that they evaluate better than Texas. And here's what I mean by that. This is not a point that's exclusive to the Wine-Vosick situation. 3 of the wide receivers that Texas is going to lean on in tomorrow's football game were guys that Oklahoma decided they simply did not want and could have had, mind you. Now, we don't know if Oklahoma was right or wrong in those evaluations yet. I'm just saying, this is the fact of the matter. Oklahoma did not want these 3 guys. DeAndre Moore, who was committed to the Sooners, they decided to separate from at a certain point in the 2023 cycle. Parker Livingston, who has family ties to Chandler, Oklahoma, and coveted an Oklahoma offer for years and years. Never did get that offer. Wound up signing with Texas. And then Dalen McCutcheon, a true freshman who's played a lot thus far for the Longhorns, was a guy whose sister, there are a couple of connections here. First and foremost, she did play soccer at Oklahoma for a couple of years, and then even after leaving Oklahoma, she dated former Oklahoma edge rusher Nick Benito as well. So a lot of Oklahoma ties for Dalen McCutcheon and his folks as well. But if those 3 guys, if you can power down the Texas passing attack and your wide receivers can outperform those guys, then again, that's validation for this Oklahoma football staff.
Continued validation for sure. And if you recall a few years ago when that kind of Vosick flip happened and then Kobe McKenzie flirted with Texas, right? And there was, a lot of Texas fans that say, fine, you take Kobe McKenzie and we'll take Colton Vosick, and then we'll check back in a couple years. Well, Kobe McKenzie has outproduced Colton Vosick dramatically as he's played his 3 years in Oklahoma. I just think that, Oklahoma continues. And really, this is the story to be told over the history of the 2 programs, Parker. One has always got the talent, right? We talked about it on the OU Insider pregame pod. Texas, the story with them is always, man, they sure do have a lot of talent. Yep. I wonder if they can develop it. I wonder if they can realize it. I wonder if they can help push them to their potential, and they rarely do. Whereas Oklahoma rarely has a higher recruiting class ranked than Texas, but look at the success of the 2 programs over the last few decades. They're not close. Yeah. So that's kind of the calling card, if you were to ask me, of Oklahoma. It is a development program, but if you can pair the 2, if you can pair the development with the high-end guys like the Jake Krells and these types, the Bo Bentleys, these guys, the David Stones, right? If you can pair those together, that's when the magic happens, and that's when you're able to compete at a national level.
Oklahoma's top-ranked commit in the 2026 cycle, well, depending on which service you follow, but top-ranked defensive commit, that's the consensus. That's not in question. And by some services' rankings, the top overall commit is the one guy that Texas did legit go head-to-head, or I'm sorry, Oklahoma legit went head-to-head with Texas and beat. Because let's be honest, Bo Jandro was always coming to Oklahoma. Correct. His brother was already committed to the Sooners when he OV'd to Texas. So that's not a victory that you were running victory laps about, because it felt like you were always getting that kid. But Jake Krell, man, that one got a little dicey down the stretch. Yeah. It wasn't always completely clear that Jake Krell was coming to Oklahoma. But, man, you got to have a guy or 2 like that in pretty much every single class, where you did go toe-to-toe with some of the other top programs in college football, and in particular, especially your chief rival, and get the job done.
Yeah, and that's why, and I know I harp on this from time to time, but that's why I will always remind everybody, stop rooting for Texas to be good so Oklahoma can, quote-unquote, crush them or tear them down or this, that, and the other. You should want Texas to go 0-12 every single year. 0-12 every single year. You want to be able to dig your teeth into the state of Texas recruiting, knowing that you can laugh at Texas when they're going through their Charlie Strong years and their Tom Herman years and all things like that. That's what you want to root for. And, Oklahoma has a unique opportunity, not only on the recruiting front, but everywhere else. Excitement of donors, everything. If they're able to just put a fork in Texas's season and knock them down to 3-3. And also, I'll tell you what, if you're a defensive player watching this game, you're going to see 2 good defenses.
Yes, you
will.
But
I think you're going to see the best defense in the country and I think you're going to see a defense that might be the most talented in the country. I don't think those two are the same thing.
Let's hear from y'all in the final segment. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Hit us up. We'll talk a lot more on the other side. Keep it here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Beat Texas Week on the Ref is brought to you by Boyd Street Ventures. Visit BoydStreetVentures.com to see how Boyd Street Ventures is bringing OU innovation to the world. Boyd Street Ventures, under the radar, above the crowd.
Mike Steele here for Lasher Home Comfort Systems, your trusted home comfort experts in the Oklahoma City metro area. Tim Lasher and his team have more than 130 years of combined experience. They recognize a significant number of homeowners live with inadequate home comfort systems. They specialize in diagnosing your home system issues while providing more efficiency and reducing your utility costs. As an authorized dealer of American Standard, Tim can service your residence or business. Call Tim and his team at 405-579-3113. Lasher Home Comfort Systems.
Ready to jumpstart your future? Start training for a high-demand, high-wage career in healthcare, construction, IT, manufacturing, or STEM while you're still in high school. Moore and Norman sophomores, juniors, and seniors apply online today to attend Moore Norman Technology Center next fall. Talk to your MNTC rep at school or visit mntc.edu to learn more. Change your life, build your tomorrow, start your future now at Moore Norman Technology Center.
I'm your football-obsessed best man. Physically, I'm right here. But mentally, I'm here. Yeah, I do. Come on, speed it up. When all eyes are on you, my eyes are glued to the game. Whoa! Touchdown, yeah! And if you didn't bundle your home and auto insurance, well, all of this could be tough to tackle. So get Allstate and be better protected from mayhem. Like me.
Call Josh Nelson, Allstate Insurance Agency, 405-360-9500 to be protected from mayhem.
Lake Crest Casino and Hotel is the perfect getaway in Ardmore, Oklahoma, where fun, comfort, and entertainment all come standard. Stay in our luxurious 89-room hotel or treat yourself to our resort-style pool with outside bar, enjoy fine dining in our restaurant, or try your luck in our casino. The Oasis Boutique offers something for everyone. Plan your next getaway at Ardmore's newest destination for luxury, excitement, and unforgettable fun at lakecrestcasino.com or call 580-222-2910.
What's up, Ref Army? Darinoka here of the SEC Network and your newest host here at the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Spend your late mornings with me and Josh Helmer every weekday from 9 to noon as we talk everything Sooners, and I'll help you all keep tabs on what's happening in the rest of the SEC. The Ref is the home for the best coverage of anything and everything Sooners, and you can listen worldwide on the KREF app. Check us out in your Apple or Google Play store by searching for KREF and take us anywhere you go. That's the KREF app for the Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
At Cavender Ford of OKC, we believe in more than just selling cars. We believe in building relationships based on trust, transparency, and treating you like family. For more than 80 years, the Cavender Auto family has built our business on these simple, important values. We call it doing things the Cavender way. Cavender Ford of OKC would like to welcome all Putnam City Schools, parents, students, faculty, and staff to visit us at 7320 Northwest Expressway. Confidence is Cavender.
I'm Oklahoma Sooner quarterback John Mateer. My job is to move the ball down the field and get the Sooners across the goal line. If you've been injured in an auto accident, you need a pro to be the quarterback of your medical care needs. Dr. Martin Lopez and the OKC Car Crash Clinic are your premier teammates to help you on your road to recovery. Dr. Lopez is a specialty trained MD with decades of experience. Make your best play call and contact Dr. Lopez at 405-86-CRASH. That's 405-862-7274 or visit okccrash.com.
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart. Every year, more than 4 million pets enter shelters here in the United States. My friends at American Humane have been helping animals since 1877. The goal is to ensure that pets have a safe shelter, especially during natural disasters. Adopting a shelter pet allows shelters to help more animals awaiting care. Please consider adopting today and take some time to learn more about American Humane's other work at americanhumane.org.
Back with you here on the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Counting you down. Helping count you down, I should say. To OU Texas at the Cotton Bowl tomorrow afternoon. 2:30 kick in the heart of Dallas at the Texas State Fair. Absolutely can't wait. Where would you rather be? 405-651-3439 is how you tap in with us on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Parker Thune here, usually joined by Grayson Singleton on this show. He had to jet out a little bit early to go call a game in Tulsa, so it's just me and you. Just me and you here for the final segment of the show. Please feel free to share feedback, questions, analysis, predictions, any and all of the above. Again, 405-651-3439. Fun question from a 405 listener, and this is a recruiting show, so I'm more than happy to answer it. Can you review the top 10 current Oklahoma high school football recruits and where they are committed? Obviously, not all of them are committed to OU, but it would be nice to highlight some of the talent across the state. Thanks. Well, in the 2026 class, it's pretty well known, I think, at this point, that Oklahoma only has one commit from within state lines. That, of course, being Rejoice Christian School wide receiver Xavier Okafaleze, a 3-star prospect, and a pretty recent commit for the Sooners. He just locked it in last month with the program. So, as we look right now at the top 10 players in the state of Oklahoma in the 2026 class, i.e. graduating seniors, the number 1 player in the state is Norman North wide receiver Mason James, a Washington commit. Number 2, quarterback Jaden O'Neal, former Oklahoma commit, but now pledged to Florida State. The number 3 player in the state is uncommitted offensive tackle Daniel McMorris of Norman North. That's a kid that Oklahoma has offered, will host for an official visit at the Ole Miss game 2 weekends from now, and appears to be in very strong shape to land. Number 4, as I mentioned, is Okafaleze, the lone Oklahoma commit on the list. Number 5, uncommitted Santa Fe defensive lineman Landon Anderson. Again, Edmond Santa Fe High School is where he plays his ball. He, at a certain point, has been committed to both Kansas and Oklahoma State, recently decommitted from the Pokes in the aftermath of Mike Gundy's firing. Number 6 player in the state, DJ Ackerson at Putnam City. He's a Kansas State commit, 3-star linebacker. Number 7, another recent Oklahoma State decommit who is back on the open market, Aiden Martin, offensive tackle out of Tulsa Berry Hill High School. The number 8 player in the state is still technically committed to Oklahoma State, but is not expected to stick. That would be Owasso defensive lineman Taj Overton. Mizzou has had the recent juice in their efforts to flip him. And then the last couple on the list, number 9 and number 10 respectively, Naquane Carter from Southmore, defensive lineman, and Caden Jones, son of former Sooner Kewan Jones. Those two both committed to Kansas. So that is your top 10 in the class of 2026 in the state of Oklahoma. So before too long here, i.e. in the next 3 weeks, before Halloween, the Sooners should have 2 of the top 5 within state lines committed, which is kind of crazy to think about because there was justifiably a little bit of a freak out happening midsummer about the lack of Oklahoma representation in the class because at the time, Okafaleze and Daniel McMorris were fringe guys. They were squarely in 3-star territory, not considered at the time to be the high-level prospects that guys like Mason James and Jaden O'Neal and Landon Anderson and Taj Overton were. But obviously, as they've continued to put stuff on tape, as the rankings have evolved and there have been new evaluations done of those guys, their body of work at the high school level, you've seen ZZ Okafaleze and Daniel McMorris both rise substantially to the point where, again, McMorris is number 3 in the state, Okafaleze is number 4 in the state. They were both well outside the top 10 during OV season in June. So, speaks to some really solid evaluations by the Oklahoma staff and the willingness to go build relationships relatively early in the process that even if they didn't intend to extend the offer right away, they knew, hey, there's a good chance down the line we may come for these guys. And it took them until September to offer both Okafaleze and McMorris. So it was late in the process that Oklahoma got involved with those two. But obviously Okafaleze wasted absolutely no time. It took him less than 48 hours to commit publicly, and it doesn't seem that McMorris will wait too much longer before locking in his decision, which should go in favor of OU as well. Greg from Lawton would like to know if I am going to see any recruits tonight. Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. I'll be shipping down to Waco. I think that's, hour 15 south of Dallas. Not too much of a trek. But I'm going to be heading down to Waco to watch 3-star 2027 running back Lathan Wissington. Now, Oklahoma has not signed a player from Waco since Tanner Mordecai in the class of 2018. He was a Waco Midway product. Wissington is also a Midway product, and I misspoke. He is no longer a 3-star. He is a 4-star, according to Rivals, the number 21 running back in the 2027 class, and a guy with whom Oklahoma is in really, really strong shape early on. The Sooners have 5 commits in the 2027 class. Wissington certainly one of those guys that is on the short list. If he were the next OU commit, it wouldn't be an enormous shock by any means. That's not to suggest the decision is decidedly imminent, but the Sooners are in great shape in the early stages with Lathan Wissington. A 580 listener asks, are there any visiting recruits on the Texas side that share interest in OU as well this week? Yes, there are a few. 4-star cornerback Jerry Outhouse in the 2027 class is a guy that Oklahoma and Texas are both prioritizing. Another 2027 corner that's a blue chipper, Talon Mayo, big corner, 6'4", out of Louisville High School. Of course, Oklahoma landed Jaden Hardy and Michael Fasusi from Louisville, so they have a history there. Those are the two that spring immediately to mind that are high-priority guys for both OU and Texas. Another guy that could fall in that category is 4-star 2028 wide receiver Damarian Mays from North Crowley High School in the DFW area. Again, there's not a ton of overlap, not as much as we're used to seeing between OU and Texas. But, yes, there are a few. Elsewhere on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line, Santa John would like to know, assuming OU continues winning, which causes highly rated flips to OU, would OU decline currently committed recruits? That's a good question, Santa John. And, look, there are too many hypotheticals at play there for me to give you a solid answer. I will tell you, there's nobody in OU's class right now that is earmarked by the staff, and, their thought is, okay, well, if we get the guy that we actually want, we're going to cut this guy loose. No, all of the 21 guys that are currently committed to Oklahoma in the 2026 cycle are takes that the staff feels great about. Now, we live in a world here in 2025, we live in an era of college football where cutthroat decisions have to be made with regard to roster composition. And, look, at this time last year, I wouldn't have told you that Oklahoma was going to be severing ties with a couple of blue-chip wide receiver commits a week before signing day, but they did. They cut Grayson Harris loose. They cut Marcus Harris loose. And so, is it out of the realm of possibility? No, not at all. But I guess what I'm saying is there is no concrete, definite plan to move on from one of the current commits if the Sooners can get somebody better at that particular spot. No plan whatsoever. That's not the way that this staff and this front office operates. Cody from Tulsa says, do I have to break a thumb to get a text read? I'm sorry, Cody. It's Friday of OU Texas week. We're getting a ton of texts, and I can only read so many. He says, how many guys are OVing tomorrow for Texas who we are in the mix for? In other words, would you go to the opposing side when you're leaning towards OU just to be able to experience the Red River rivalry? There are no official visitors. I don't know if there are any official visitors at all for Texas at the Red River Shootout tomorrow. Certainly none that Oklahoma is in the mix for. Again, the only guys that OU and Texas kind of crossed over on in the 2026 cycle were Jake Krell and Bo Jandro. Both of those guys OV'd to both schools, and they both chose Oklahoma. But that's really the extent of the overlap in the 2026 cycle for the Sooners and the Longhorns. Dave from Norman wants to know, Parker, what do you think the chances are of OU landing that Milan Paris kid who decommitted from ISU? Well, I think Oklahoma's chances are pretty good right now, but you're going to have to ask me again next week and then the week after that, because Milan Paris is coming off his OV to Oklahoma this past weekend for the Kent State game. He is also going to OV to Miami and to Oregon. Those are the two schools that Oklahoma is competing with, Miami and Oregon. Now, there is the chance Oklahoma could get Milan Paris back on campus later this season. And if that happens, if they get the chance to make the first impression and the last impression on his fall OV slate, then I think you feel great about where Oklahoma stands with the hyper-athletic wide receiver out of Akron, Ohio, Milan Paris. So I think OU, I think they have a good chance. I don't know if they have a great chance. I think they have a good chance right now, and that's about all I can say until we see what the returns are from Paris's visit to Oregon and his visit to Miami. A 405 listener, thank you for bringing this name up. What about Zane Rowe? Zane Rowe is also a guy that OU and Texas are battling over, but those are far from the only two schools in the mix. I don't really regard that as primarily an OU-Texas battle right now. In fact, the schools that I would say are primarily competing with OU for Zane, well, here's the thing about the whole Zane Rowe recruitment, too, is it varies, man. He's kind of been all over the place ever since he backed off that commitment to OU. The two schools that he really, really likes and visits a lot are Oklahoma and Georgia. So you have those two. You have a series of others that his interest in seems to ebb and flow. But, yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's certainly doing all of the right things, hitting all of the right marks so far on the football field, at the defensive end position in particular, to make sure that they can get Zane Rowe back in a strong 2027 class, which is already number 2 in the nation, even without Zane Rowe on board. Blake from Owasso wants to know, chances we flip Wisconsin wide receiver commit Jaden Petit. I don't know, Blake. Less than 50% right now is what I would say. I've talked to people that think Jaden Petit does come around and flip to Oklahoma. I've talked to people that don't even think he makes it in for a visit. So he's a hard kid to read, always has been. He seemingly is the type that's going to tell everybody a little bit of what they want to hear, which makes it tough to gauge. But that's a guy in whom Oklahoma still has a ton of interest and will continue to push for, especially as Wisconsin scuffles. Final text, Gary says, I'll never forget my first spring game. Mordecai threw a ball out of bounds, and some student-age-looking guy yelled at the top of his lungs, F you, Mordecai. He finished out his college career at Wisconsin. I think I'm right on that. Look at that. Two Wisconsin mentions, I should say, in the same segment between Jaden Petit and Tanner Mordecai. I think he went OU to SMU to Wisconsin. All right, folks. Thanks for the interaction throughout the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. I am now done from the Omni here in Dallas. I'm going to turn things over to Tyler McComas and Teddy Lehman. The Rush is coming up on the other side. 3 more hours of live OU sports talk from downtown D-Town. The Red River Shootout is 24 hours away. Make it a good one, folks. See you on the other side.